My name is Alexander Essex. I'm an associate professor of software engineering at Western University. And my research is in cybersecurity and cryptography, but my expertise is in the cybersecurity of elections. I've studied cybersecurity issues of online voting extensively in Canada and abroad, and I frequently share these findings with election agencies and commissions and municipal councils and associations. I co-authored the 2013 cybersecurity analysis of vendor proposals for the City of Toronto regarding their online voting RFP. And I led a cybersecurity study of online voting use in the 2018 Ontario municipal election. In February, I spoke at the New South Wales Parliamentary Committee on Electoral Matters about their online voting system. And next month, I'll be speaking to the Northwest Territories Legislative Committee about their new online voting system. More recently, I've been working with Dr. Goodman, who's speaking next, to try to advance the cause of cybersecurity standards for online voting in Canada. Our country actually has one of the highest rates of online voting use in the world, but somehow we have no standards for any of it. So as you can imagine, this has led to a number of troubling incidents and, in my opinion, a very intolerably high cyber risk exposure. So, I've seen a lot of bad voting technology in my time. So back in March, when Dr. Goodman and I heard that Parliament was studying the issue of remote legislative voting, we wanted to kind of get out in front of any potentially dubious proposals, such as the EU Parliament's idea to use email for voting. So we wrote an article in Policy Options to try to provide some food for thought. It was interesting because although the article was about how to do remote legislative voting in a safe, cyber-conscious way, all the feedback we've received revolved around the importance of parliamentary tradition. And, I agree. I mean, parliamentary tradition is really important, but, our present circumstance isn't exactly traditional. The Globe reported this week there's been 38 sittings, regular sittings of the House in the past 12 months. That's not tradition. And 30 members voting on a historic spending measure, that's not tradition. Having all the members meeting in a kind of a super committee, but not actually voting, that's not tradition either. So, here we are, what are we going to do? Well, the good news is remote legislative voting happens to be a way easier technical problem than online voting for general elections. And there's a couple of good reasons for that. One is that unlike the general election, Parliament has the ability to support MPs with secure technology and training. But most importantly, legislative votes are not secret. They're a matter of public record, which means you can go back and you can check what was recorded, which means you can actually detect when things go wrong. But here's where we have to be careful, because it's not enough to be able to check, you have to actually do it. And you have to have procedures in place so that you know what to do when things go wrong. Now, this might seem like a totally obvious statement, but it's actually not. It should be, but our experience has demonstrated time and again a kind of bias in the election world to kind of, frankly, only prepare for disasters after they've already happened. So we're saying, let's not wait, let's anticipate, let's build it right from the beginning. Now, let me give you an example. 6 months before the 2018 Ontario municipal election, I did a story with CBC about how I was worried that the cities that were doing online voting didn't seem to have a cyber incident response plan. Now, imagine that the internet goes down on election night. What are you going to do, right? Like, what's your game plan? CBC actually then went and interviewed a number of city clerks, and several of them admitted that they actually didn't have a plan. And one even literally said, "We're hoping nothing happens." So, okay, what do you think happened? One of the online vendors, it sort of accidentally didn't provide enough bandwidth, and the online voting websites of 43 different cities, accounting for almost 1 million voters, went down on election night. 35 of those cities ended up using emergency measures to extend the voting period by 24 hours. Now, it wasn't just that these cities didn't have a plan in place, it's that they didn't think it was enough of a risk to even have a plan for. Now, you might think, well, that was just a fluke, but a similar situation happened in New South Wales last year, which is why I was there testifying. I was telling them about what happened in Ontario because it was related. Their registration went down on the eve of the election. Now, you might think, okay, well, this is all good. This all applies to general elections. Legislative voting is different. But just last week in Sarnia, Ontario, a city council vote actually passed by mistake. It turns out that the word disagree sounds exactly like the word agree if the first syllable drops out in a glitchy Zoom connection. Now, fortunately, the staff was on the ball and they caught it, this time. But, what about next time? Obviously, we need procedures to make this kind of checking repeatable and, by the way, part of the ultimate eventual tradition. Now, we've only touched on accidents and mistakes, but we're also worried about deliberate efforts from advanced persistent threat actors like nation states. We have seen these kind of advanced threat actors living in the IT infrastructure of our cities. And if they're willing to spend months mapping out a system for a few $1,000s of potential ransom money, imagine what they could do to an election. And then why even hack an election when you could just hack the law itself? So let me conclude by summarizing a few takeaways. One, secure remote online voting for non-secret parliamentary divisions is doable, but it has to be done right. There has to be procedures for detecting errors, whether they're due to hacking or accidents or disasters. Someone has to be responsible for checking that an MP's vote was correctly recorded. There has to be procedures for granting opportunity to recover from that error. And we have to confront our temptation to think that nothing's going to happen. I was hearing that people were talking about tornadoes last night and windows blowing open, and these sorts of things don't happen until one day they do. So, Madam Chair, thank you for letting me share these thoughts with you, and it would be an honor to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.